I believe this is the 30th anniversary of the Roar Foundation running Shambhala.
Yes.
So before I ask you about the Roar Foundation, Shambhala existed prior to that?
Yes, I've been rescuing cats since 1972, big cats.
Okay.
And that all happened when I did 2 films in Africa in 1969 and 1970. And during those years, environmentalists all over the world were telling us that if we didn't do something to save the wild animals from encroaching civilization, sport hunting, and poaching, by the year 2000, they would all be gone. So there was a great deal of awareness going on, and there were films being done and news reports, and it was me really making a point. My then husband was a producer, so we thought, let's do a movie. And kicking around ideas, we decided to use The Great Cat. And that all happened when we went on a photo safari in Mozambique. And there had been a house that had been abandoned by a game warden because it flooded during the rainy season. So he moved out and a pride of lion moved in. It was the most awesome sight.
Wow.
And there must have been 25, 30 lions of all sizes living in that house.
Wow.
And so we thought, perfect movie set, perfect animal most people are enchanted with. And so we got back to the coast, the script was written, and because of the numbers of cats that we saw in that house, there must have been 25 to 30. That's the way the script was written. And we were going to have Hollywood acting animals, 9 months shoot, over and out. Well, as soon as the trainers read the script, they just laughed at us and said, this can't be done. And we said, and why not? They said, because of the numbers of cats who have working together. And we said, well, that's the way they do it in Africa. They said, no, it isn't that. It's the instinctual dictates to fight a cat they don't know. I don't want my cat hurt. I don't want to get hurt. Get your own animals to do the movie. Well, so several of the trainers knew of people who were, had rescues. And so our first one was a rescue, the second, third, fourth, fifth. And that's the way it grew. And in the 80s, we had 150 big cats that we had rescued.
Amazing. So just jumping around chronologically for a moment.
Sure.
So you came back from that movie in Africa, but this property itself, prior to 72, 73, what existed here where we are today?
Well, it was owned by one of the trainers.
Okay.
And when we were acquiring all of these animals, by the time we had, 10 or 12, we had to find a place for them. And we asked if they would board our little lions, and he said sure. And then they kept coming in, sometimes 12 at a time.
Wow.
From a safari park that went under. The situations were varied and many.
Yeah.
And so pretty soon the board bill was more than the mortgage, so we bought the place.
Wow. And at the outset, when you were acquiring these various cats, was the idea that, was there an option? Did you have to sort of buy them and keep them, or could you have hypothetically?
No, we didn't buy any of them.
Okay.
They were all rescues.
Rescues from...
this was from all over the United States. I mean, none of them came from their indigenous areas.
Okay.
Not at all, because U.S. Fish and Wildlife have very, very good control as to what comes into the United States.
So this was prior to... Somehow they got into the U.S.
No, they were born here. Every one of them were born here.
But that's what I mean, born at a zoo or born somewhere?
No, born by private citizens who had them as pets, who made a business out of it.
Wow.
And, all the years that, prior to my becoming involved with federal legislation to stop it, I was becoming, so angry because all of the animals that were coming to us had a sad story, a horrifying story. It was just the learning of all of it, getting to know the animals, the different personalities, the traits, and the instinctive dictates. All of that had to be learned, and and that became my life.
Now, I would imagine that 99,999 out of 10,000 or out of 100,000 movie stars, not that there's that many, but if they were in your position,
Big business.
if they had been in that position, they would say, all right, we'll let somebody else manage these for me, or I wouldn't get it, or they wouldn't get involved in the first place. What was it, do you think, that predisposed you to being open to such a sort of out there idea?
I think what really happened. Should I just get that rid of?
Don't worry about it. Sorry.
What happened was I've always had a great love for all animals. I don't care what it is. I find every species on our planet to be fascinating. They all have a job, and the unique part of it is they are all perfect at it. They are all perfect at their jobs. But I fell totally in love with these animals. I love them more than my next breath, but as the years went on, I learned they are not pets, and they shouldn't be born in the United States for any reason. That if they are deadly, if they don't give you a warning, and it is never their fault. It is ours for putting them in this kind of a position. So as I was learning all of these things about them, and the fact that they kept coming in by the ones, the twos, the dozens at a time, and I thought, why aren't there laws in the United States? Why does our government look at these animals as a business? And according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it's on a par with illegal drugs. It's that big.
Wow.
And when it gets that big, it gets dangerous.
Yeah.
The first bill that I brought to my own congressman in 2003, it was titled the Captive Wildlife Safety Act. And that bill was kind of a baby step to what ultimately my desire was to have a bill passed that it would stop the breeding, stop the killing, stop the maulings of children and adults, because they are...
Yeah, you read every so often about...
they're in the hundreds.
Now, why is it legal for somebody in this country who's not running a organized operation like this to have a lion at all, or to have
Well, because there are only 9 states that have good, solid laws. You can't have any wild animal in your possession. However, the rest of them, there are quasi-laws. There are, California has good laws, but they're only as good as they're enforced, always. So it's a huge problem. The second bill I brought to my congressman, Buck McKeon, 25th District, California, was to stop the breeding. And it finally was introduced just last May 16th, and 2013. And now it's just sitting, waiting to go to committee, and then after committee, then they vote in the House, and then it goes to the Senate. The Senate will have its own bill, but it will be very, it'll be the same. My first bill passed unanimously in the House and Senate, and Bush signed it on December 19th of 2003.
That's amazing, because they can't even agree what day of the week it is, so for them to agree unanimously.
Yeah, wasn't that amazing?
That is great.
Yes.
And so, ultimately, if this newer bill were to pass, what would be different, practically, for
what will happen is the people who have the animals already will be grandfathered. That's what we call it, grandfathered in. Right. So because the worst thing, it's our biggest nightmare to think of these animals. There are tens of thousands of them in the United States, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
There are so many of them that if they all were to be taken away from the owners, where would they go?
Right.
So they will be grandfathered in. They will be checked through the Department of Agriculture, but unfortunately the Department of Agriculture has over 7,000 facilities to investigate every year, and they have 102 or 5 inspectors. So this is it's a quagmire. But at least it's in the works,
right?
And it has to stop because there are so many people getting hurt, and children.
Thankfully, I think I wonder what your take on this is, but it seems like it would need somebody not only who's worked as long as you have with these kinds of affairs, but also with a public profile to actually get people look at. Even with you, and look how slow it's going. So imagine if it was just Joe Schmo, could be never get dealt with.
Well, it is my mission, it is my goal to stop this insanity, because that's what it is.
Right. Just the idea of breeding.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
And so, separately, for somebody who came here or heard about Shambhala, they said, "What's Shambhala?" How would you explain to somebody what actually goes on here, which is a more appealing model of how to do things? Like, what goes on at Shambhala?
Well, when we were doing our movie, there was one-on-one contact, and all of us were hurt.
Really?
Every one of us were hurt.
In what ways?
My daughter her face was scratched. My stepson found his head in the mouth of a lion. One lion got my other stepson's foot. I was bitten in the back of the head.
Wow. My
then husband, who was playing the role of the scientist, was in the hospital so many times up in Palmdale, they were going to name a wing after him. Our DP, Jan de Bont, was scalped. Our DP, our first assistant director was almost killed.
Wow.
And all of these things are happening over a long period of years. Our 9-month shoot took 5 years.
Wow.
So it was a long period in between accidents. But at the same time, we were adding it all up and
it's saying, a lot of...
yeah, this is insanity. Just what we're doing with this movie is insanity.
Yeah.
And
why were you doing it? What was your hope?
Well, the hope was it was supposed to be, and it does, it tells the dangers of the animals, how dangerous they are. It gives the whole story. It isn't a documentary, but we do get a lot of information across in it. And
the point of telling people how dangerous it is would be so that if they were breeding independently, that it was all part of the same mission, that if you're anti-breeding, essentially, that was same as with the bills that you've been doing since, same objective?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just to go back, you said even as a kid, I think you were into animals. What did you have animals around growing up?
Well, it was in the height of the big Depression, and my parents didn't have any money, so we didn't have a lot of animals. No, but I had a wonderful little dog named Corky, and that I just adored, and a cat named Peter. And I truly, I do truly love animals.
Even birds.
And I love it. Do you know we have a flock of raven who live here, and it's huge because they're meat eaters.
Yes.
And so this whole huge, and my ravens are huge, and shiny and black as coal.
Have you ever had any incidents with them?
No, no. Except on the roof of my bedroom, every now and then they'll bring something up there, and they'll all flock and.
Oh my goodness! It's too funny.
It is great. It is crazy. Yes, but those ravens are so smart. They know exactly what time the staff feed. Yeah. And they follow all the way along, down through the whole mile of habitats. Yes. And they know which of the big cats they can steal from and which ones they can't.
Because they would get.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that just brings up for somebody who hasn't been here or doesn't know what it's about, what is on this property here? How big is the property and what's on it?
Okay, we have 72 acres and we use about 45. And they aren't cages; they're big compounds. We so excel the regulations that are from our state, California, and from the USDA. We far excel. In fact, we just rebuilt one of the compounds up in that area up there, and it's $100,000.
Wow.
Because security is one of our prime prerequisites, and it's 9-gauge chain link. It's concreted 2 feet into the ground.
That's each compound?
Every one of them.
And how many compounds did you say there were?
Oh gosh, 40 some.
Wow. And all of them are occupied or
no,
not?
They're not, and
okay.
we have to do over a number of them because we've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
We have to constantly redo them, and the more we do, the better they get, and it's it's so expensive. I really need financial help.
Well, that I do want to come to because I know that's a big issue. But I have to ask you, for some, who gets to come? How does an animal get to come to Shambhala? Does anybody who needs a home get accepted, or do you pick and choose?
No, we don't pick and choose. If they need a home, we take them.
And so
we've taken in crippled animals. We took a crippled animal from the circus. The circuses are bitter cruel to these animals, the elephants especially.
I remember that's Lily's one of her things as well, yeah.
But with the lions, all of us, they have a fear of fire.
Yeah.
And they have the lions jumping through fires. It's just
terrible.
Why? Get into the 21st century. Come on.
And they suggest it's educational, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, anyway, Cindy came in with. She had broken her leg doing one of the acts, and they didn't even bother to set it. They didn't do anything. When she came in, her right hind leg was almost sticking out adjacently from her body.
Wow, terrible.
Yeah.
Now you refer to Cindy. I know that I've heard at least that for many of these. You actually name them.
Oh, sure we do.
And is it correct that some of them are named after your leading men?
Oh, those are my house cats.
Oh, those are the house cats. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so who got lucky and got a name? Who was?
Okay, my first co-star, Rod Taylor.
Yeah.
Second, Sean Connery. John Saxon.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Antonio Banderas. I just did a little bit in one of the movies he was doing, and Melanie Griffith.
She gets one. Even though she's not a man.
She was. This is a female.
Yes.
And then 2 years ago, we had a cat living under my house, and he came out one day as I was coming out my front door, and he said, "Will you leave that door open? Because I'm going to come in. I'm going to live here now." And I named him Johnny Depp. So.
That's so fun. Now, did you ever work with Johnny Depp?
No, but I want to.
You want? That's a good. So we have one on the wish list. That's a good.
But what's interesting is Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando were very close friends, and so my cats are living together very amicably.
That's great.
And they have a great time together.
That's great.
Yeah,
and
it's funny.
Now you referred to the fact it's off camera right here, but very close to this. You also live here, and so I wonder when did you move onto the property, and what do you like? Why do you live here? Why do you choose? Because not everybody would.
Why wouldn't I live here? Oh God, I've lived here since 1976.
Wow.
I did remarry because my then husband, we did the film together. We divorced, and. I did remarry, and I would spend 3 or 4 days with him, and the rest of the time, going back and forth and back and forth. But this is my home. I can't imagine living any place, and I have traveled the world.
Right.
And people ask me all the time, "Don't you miss the city?"
Who does? Who what?
People.
People say don't you miss it? Yeah.
Yeah, I miss what? I'm living in paradise.
Right.
I hear the lions roaring,
right.
and we have no contact with the animals at all anyway. Right. Nobody.
Meaning actual.
Even the people. We have no touching.
At one time, you would though in the past,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yes, we did.
Yeah.
It's before we got smart.
And I think people might assume, it's sometimes well-known people say they're involved with a charity or something, and it's really a name thing only. You are very hands-on here, right?
Yes.
Can you explain like what even these days, today, for not even specifically today, but like any given day, what might your activities here be?
Well, it's different every day,
Yeah.
because I have several different careers.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm working on in the city on something. Sometimes I'm traveling around the world.
Yeah.
There's always something to do with Shambhala,
Right.
with fundraising, and I do a lot of writing about issues that need to be addressed. And but as far as the operation
Right.
now, I am president of the Roar Foundation. I gave the gavel to Chris Gallucci, who had been with me since 1975.
Wow.
And he took care of our 2 African elephants for 20 years,
Wow.
20-some years. And they saved his life, and he saved theirs, and
So-
gave them a beautiful life.
And so that brings up the point. It's not, people might think, because I think we're most prominently we talk about the cats, but it's not just lions and tigers. What other animals have
Black and spotted leopard.
Okay.
Mountain lion, serval, bobcat, lynx, Asian leopard cat.
Wow. And then you've had elephants.
Yeah, the 2 African elephants.
Wow. And
One of them came from the Circus Vargas, and she hated it so much. She hated not only doing the stupid tricks that they make them do, which are totally unnatural to them, and they are also the confinement. I mean, elephants should be walking 50 miles a day.
Sure.
They should be submerging into their
Yeah.
the lakes and the streams,
Right.
and here they were able to do
Right.
everything. But Cora hated it so much that she almost killed 2 trainers, tore the tent down, and they were going to kill her.
Cora, this is the one that had
The elephant.
previously. Now she
Been with
hated
the
it when she had
circus.
been at the circus, and then
Yes.
she came here and she was reformed.
Oh, and then she and Timbo got along fine. In fact, they knew each other
Yeah.
before
Oh, wow.
they ended up here.
And they
it's
reconnected.
an amazing story.
Amazing. Yeah.
Totally amazing. But this is, what our endeavor is, to give these animals the best life they could possibly have in captivity.
Yeah.
And that means the tigers have to have water to play in, and we build high rises for them because they all love to be up high.
Now, as great as it is for them versus where they're coming from, is the ideal situation for a tiger? Do you feel if it could be done economically, would you return them to Africa, or would you return them to the wild, or do you feel if that's not an option, that, I mean, I guess is that
That is not an option.
Yeah.
And there are several reasons
Yeah.
reasons for it. First of all, they haven't had a mom to teach them how to live in the wild. I mean, the moms spend a couple of years teaching them how to hunt, how to look out. I mean, it's dangerous out there.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody has their own predators.
Yeah.
Of course, with the lions and tigers, it's man, that is their predator. But and not only that, they have had a relationship with a human.
right?
So there is no way
You
that
can't
this
go
could
back.
work. They wouldn't last 10 minutes out in the wild. Not
Interesting.
a minute. Which is so sad.
Yeah.
People so often say, well, why can't they just go back
But
in the wild?
you make the best of the.
And not only that, their moms haven't had
Yeah.
any teaching how to live in the wild. I mean,
they have no
it's
idea.
it's a total disaster.
I guess it would be like dropping a human in the jungle or something. How do you? survive?
Something, I use that analogy as like taking a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and good
Say
luck to you.
bye-bye.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, which I've read and you brought up today, about the fact that it's not cheap to run a place like this, and maybe if you have any figures that you can share, but I know it's very expensive and very tough, and a lot of it falls on you to keep that funds flowing. What is the current state of the financial state of Shambhala?
Okay, I have to raise $75,000 every month just to keep the whole thing going, and that amortizes out to around $1 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
That $1 million doesn't include any of the building that we have to do with, as an example, with the compounds. In fact, we have 10 compounds that we need to get finished. So that when my bill passes, and there are those animals that need to come in, that we have that capability of doing that. We have huge trees. Our trees are becoming giants again. And like every 2 years, we have to do the pruning of the trees, and that's thousands of dollars a day.
So where heretofore has the money come from?
Well, it's all private donation, including my own. I've never accepted any money. There was never any money for me to be paid. So I just said no. I could never take it away from the animals. I will work. I'll do that, and I have to work. Just to keep myself okay. No, but it's so hard. I would love to have the support of Hollywood. In a real meaningful way. Several places have disappointed me, big.
In terms of not coming through with commitments, or not even making commitments,
and even ripping us off once.
Really, it sounds like maybe the majority of people in Hollywood have not lived up to what you might have hoped that they would do, and we'll come back.
And I know a lot of people are very impressed with what we do here, and that's always wonderful. But right now I am really struggling.
Well, let's just get like how dire is the situation?
Right now it's close. It's close to dire.
If we were to say to somebody, like, to convey how urgent it is that they do that, what happens if 1 month you don't have your $75,000?
I will have it. I mean, I had to put it in the hands of God a long time ago because I was getting sick with worry over it, and because it is huge, and it's not that I don't become frightened. I do. And, I think, sometimes people, when they first see it and they get very excited about it and they help, and then they forget about us, which is, I'm about to write letters again, and
now would you encourage people, would you, like, if we, I know that the primary mission here is not to be like a zoo, because I know you don't particularly like zoos. So, but if people were to see what goes on here, I think they might be more inclined to support it. How do you feel about, X movie star decides they're intrigued about this and they want to look into it, and potentially if they do, they might have the funds to contribute. Is that something you would welcome? How would somebody come to see it? Would they just make a private appointment, or?
Yes, you could do that.
Okay. And on a happier note of this, and we're going to talk to Lily Tomlin, who I gather is there's a handful of people who either on your board or as volunteers really do come through. Can you talk about them?
Yes, they do. Yeah, absolutely. We have some wonderful volunteers who we can depend on, and they, of course, love the place, and even though they can have no contact with the animals, and our rules are very, very strict about, because accidents happen when you just let people wander around, so we never let that happen. But the jobs that they have as volunteers are joyous and fun, and of course, just watching the animals is a great treat.
So who, just for the record, I mean, I guess we can certainly look this up, but I remember, we know certainly Lily Tomlin, but who are the other people that are most, that somebody reading this might have heard of, who are actually most involved here? Not somebody who sort of lends their name, but actually... They're mostly volunteers. Yeah, okay, so not somebody that... But then we read that, so the people that are on the board, for instance, and I think, for instance, like Betty white
Betty
as well.
White, yeah.
Does somebody like that primarily help financially, or
Yes,
do they?
she does.
Okay.
Betty White helps financially.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And Lonnie Anderson comes to the events,
okay,
and which is always good.
sure.
And so is Lily.
Yes.
And you know, it's a. I don't know whether we're either too close or too far away from LA. You know,
It's about an hour,
because it's
right?
about an hour.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how difficult that is.
To get people out here.
Yes, sometimes.
And
And I don't know why.
yeah.
I go into town. I
Yeah.
mean, it's nothing.
Not bad.
And
And it's
it
beautiful
isn't.
here.
Yeah.
So I guess if you were to look right into this camera and you knew that the Hollywood community was watching, what would you ask of them?
Okay, I would ask for you please to come out and see the wild ones of Shambhala through the Roar Foundation, and listen to what we've been doing. I've been rescuing for 41 years. I know a lot about these animals, and as I've said before, I love them more than my next breath, but they are not pets, and I'm working very hard to stop the insanity. But I need financial help. We are at a state where, you know, being 41 years old in the same place, things have to be done over. And unfortunately, we are dealing with fortunately, we are dealing with one of the most dangerous animals in the world. Apex predators, top of the food chain. One of 4 of the most dangerous animals in the world. And they need very, very secure accommodations. And many of them are costing $100,000 just because of the extent of they're not a 15 by 20 cage. It isn't anything like that. They really do have a life at the Shambala Preserve. And the tigers are bordering on the river, and the high rises are for the animals because they really like to be up high for some reason. And our life is spent getting to know the personalities of these animals, the basic instincts, the genetic dictates. And when we sit around talking about them, it sounds like we're talking about friends. And we not only deal with the physical aspects of these animals, we deal with their emotional aspects of their brains, what they need, and how they're getting along with the animal that they're living with. We have spousal abuse here, and we have to watch for all of those things because they will hurt each other, and so they have to be separated, and that means another compound that has to be very ready to go. There's so much to this, and the quality of the food is so incredible that you see a uniformity of health at the Shambala Preserve that is pretty wonderful. But it all takes money, and I hope you'll help us.
And one final thing, and that's I think it's a beautiful way you put it, and I think people will respond. But a final question, because I noticed, just not even really deliberately, it occurred to me that you, as much as anybody of the Hitchcock blondes, became very involved, obviously, with animals, but to a lesser extent, also Doris Day with cats
The dogs.
and the dogs, rather.
Yes. And
Kim Novak with
Yes.
llamas and horses.
Yes.
Joan Fontaine apparently adopts a lot of dogs. Is there any rhyme or reason to why this would be? Isn't it
I don't
bizarre?
know, blondes love animals.
Well, it's we got a kick out of that, and we're going to note that as a sidebar as well. But
Sure.
but yeah, this is. I think a lot of people should be inspired when they hear about this, and hopefully inspired to dig into their wallet a little bit.
I truly hope so.
Yeah.
We need it so desperately.
Well, I will pass along the word, but thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
It's great.
Thank you so much. And it's good to see you
You
again.
too.